Welcome to another episode of Life and Equity. Today I want to talk about fear and and the effect it has on so many people. Everybody's plagued with fear of something. Unfortunately, not most people. Unfortunately, a lot of people let fear get in the way of success. They get frozen with fear and they don't take action. They're concerned or worried about what somebody might think. They're afraid of what people might think, and so they don't take action. Successful people also have fears. The difference is people who are successful overcome their fears. Um, Come across a quote that says, "Fear doesn't stop death; it stops life." And that's so true. I mean, you can worry and be afraid of all kinds of things, but it doesn't prevent death. It doesn't stop death from marching forward. It never has, and it never will. It does stop life. It stops you from living. It stops you from living life to its fullest. It stops you from taking opportunities that you would otherwise take. Stops you from reaching out to people who you feel to reach out to. Ultimately, it does stop life. I got a a unique perspective about fear, and the reason I say that is because I went through cancer. I went through got diagnosed with cancer in 2014 and had to have a bone marrow transplant in order to live because I had literally months to live if I didn't take action quick. And facing death and overcoming that fear, it it changes you. And I don't recommend it for anybody. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but it changed me. So I don't have the fear of death anymore because I faced it and I was ready to go there if needed to be. If that was what was going to take place, I was ready for that. So overcoming the fear of death, which is the ultimate fear for most people, it certainly was for me. It put things into perspective in a way that I don't know that I would have seen it otherwise. And so, and after facing a fear like that and being faced with that as a possible reality, it really puts things into perspective and it makes things that would otherwise be scary fairly irrelevant. Here again, I'm not recommending it and I'm not wishing it upon anybody, but it made me realize how much life I wasn't living because I had so many fears. And and I'm still, I mean, even after that, fears come up. Starting a YouTube channel and going public with a lot of this information. I mean, there's fear around that. The first video I made, I was nervous because, well, I hadn't done it before. It was a new experience for me. Didn't know what to expect. I didn't necessarily fear it. It was just I was nervous about it. But one thing, when I was in the hospital, because I underwent a bone marrow transplant, like I said, and when I was in the hospital, spent 5 weeks in the hospital for specifically for the transplant. And during that time, I was very restricted on how much I could travel around the hospital just to just to be safe and uh, keep myself from being exposed to other illnesses that might be in the hospital. And so there was a little area that I could walk around, and I walked around it a lot. And there was a little saying in one of the sitting areas that I would walk past. Um, and it was a saying by John Wayne. It says, "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway." And that was it was very relevant for us at the time. When I say us, my wife and I and our kids, we didn't know what the future was looking like, and it was very, very scary. And the prospect of death, the prospect of you know, if I died, my wife was left to raise our young kids at the time, four young kids. It was very scary, and it was a potential reality. And so that saying that courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway, that was very relevant to what we were dealing with at the time. And that saying has stuck with me, and it's gotten me through a lot of other challenges. So I look at them as challenges, like doing videos. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity to grow. I don't fear things anymore, and I don't fear things anymore. I don't fear anything anymore, which is great. Uh, anyway, don't live in fear. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do anybody else any good. There's a saying that or a concept of live your life as if it were your last day. What would you do if it were your last day on earth? Who would you call? Who would you talk to? How would you interact with people if it were your last day? What would you have to lose at that point in time? And really, that's the fear of loss, or whether it's loss of friendships, whether it's loss of face. For a lot of people, it's loss of face. Ego is very, very strong, prevalent in humans. And loss of when I say loss of face, I mean how am I going to look to other people? That is a huge, huge fear for most people. And the ego is there for a reason, and it has a purpose, it has a job, and it does it very well. Unfortunately, too much of our too unfortunately too many people are controlled by their ego rather than living in their heart, coming from a place of love, and coming from you know, coming from their soul and their source, and giving from that space, because they're controlled by fear and what ego says. So if you can look at your life, if you can look at every day and live every day like, as if it were your last, like treat it as if it were your last, reach out to the loved ones, mend, mend relationships, like, but do it now, because you never know when it is your last day. Uh, you know, whether you anything can go wrong. At 35 years old, I was healthy, living life, doing great, and got diagnosed with cancer, like a form of leukemia, and we faced death, and it was scary, but we got through it. Um, but it sure taught us a lot. And one thing it taught us is don't live in fear, because it does stop life. It doesn't stop death. So hope this is helpful. Please like and subscribe. Um, and if you like the content, please comment so that I know what content you like, and what to put out more of. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one.